Hi everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. In this video I wanted to chat a little bit about coverage from the drugstore. I get so many questions about full coverage foundations, particularly those at a drugstore price point, a lot of concealer questions, powder questions as well, so I thought I would lump it all into one video and just talk about some of the best coverage things at the drugstore. Some of these things you've probably heard me talking about in the whole makeup conversation here lately, but in preparing for this video I also shopped my stash and looked back for some things that maybe I haven't used a whole lot lately, but that I really do think are worthy of being called full coverage and can definitely tackle a lot of problem areas on your skin. So I am wearing a certain foundation, a couple of the concealers and powders that I'm going to be talking about in this video. So at different times for certain things I'm talking about, a little demo will pop up. But the first thing I want to talk about is this L'Oreal Infallible Total Cover. It says full coverage weightless feel foundation, and I wear this in the shade Natural Buff, and it's been quite some time since I've talked about this. Early on when I first started using this, I was kind of turned off by it because I thought, oh my gosh, this is really thick. You know, it is giving me coverage, but it's feeling kind of heavy. And I think that's because at first I was using this with a brush. But if you take the time to just dampen your sponge and blend this in with the Beauty Blender type sponge, this one happens to be from Maybelline, I feel like the coverage looks so beautiful, and I actually have really, really good staying power with this too. I'm wearing this foundation now. I'll show you what I do to put it on. I mean, I use like, I'd say a pearl-sized amount, a large pearl-sized amount of this. I squeeze out onto my fingers. I patch it onto my skin, paying attention to the places where I know I need the most coverage. That's where I'm really laying it down the thickest. And then take your dampened sponge and just start bouncing that into the skin. And I feel like that lightly dampened sponge is exactly what this foundation needs to look so natural, yet still matte on the skin. But it can achieve really great coverage and staying power for sure, but it's one of those situations where the application makes all the difference. I've got a couple other foundations that I'm going to talk about that aren't quite so finicky, I guess, in terms of what works to put them on. But this is just kind of a rediscovered full coverage drugstore foundation love here for me. And the sponge, I mean, use whatever you want. A Beauty Blender or Real Techniques sponge. Like I said, this one happens to be from Maybelline. It works fine as well. It's really, really squishy. One downfall to this might be if you're super duper dry. I could see this even with the dampened sponge maybe not being your ultimate best friend foundation wise, just because it does remain a very matte foundation and the consistency of it is kind of mousse-like. So I think that's a texture, a consistency that drier skin types always should be aware of. Now, another drugstore full coverage foundation that I absolutely love is this Maybelline Super Stay. This is definitely the consistency of a classic liquid foundation. I have two different shades of this. The one I'm holding here is warm nude, but I also have a lighter color as well. Love the pump that comes with this. You can make sure you're dispensing the right amount at all times. I'll link below to other videos I've done where I've put this on, but I just really enjoy the coverage with this. Now, even after I blend this one in, I do come away with a little more feeling of texture on my skin, like a dewiness almost. Not heavily tacky or sticky or anything like that, but it is the kind of thing that compels me to set it with some powder. Once this stuff gets set, that is the point where it really locks in and does become something with amazing staying power. And I think if your skin needs that little bit more hydration than something like this can provide, you might be interested in that. But something I've recently reviewed that I think is a truly fascinating product is the Revolution Conceal and Define. This is their full coverage foundation. Has the big buckfoot applicator, as I've called it. It's so big. But the reason why this fascinates me is that it is full coverage, but it is so lightweight. I don't feel like I have to apply a ton of product. The more I've used this, the more I've realized just taking it out the one time, whatever's on that doe foot, like it'll get around my face. As I continue to use it up more, maybe that won't always be the case. But I wear this in F7, and once you've got this all blended in, it does not have any kind of makeup-y texture. It does look matte. While it feels as though it's dried down, it doesn't do so in a quick way that ends up patchy on your skin or hard to blend. Not at all. It's super easy to work with, and to me, just exceptionally light for as much coverage as you're still getting. So I like to give a few different options because maybe you've tried one of these and for whatever reason it just wasn't your cup of tea, it didn't work for you. So I think these are three kind of different foundations really, but they all offer two things that are really important to me, which is amazing coverage and also exceptional staying power too. So your very classic liquid foundation with the Maybelline Super Stay, your next level kind of lightweight, thin, yet full coverage foundation with the Revolution. And then if you really go for that mousse-like texture that's sort of the mattest of the matte, I think you might look into this Infallible Total Cover from L'Oreal, but just keep in mind, I think a sponge works so well with it. Concealer-wise, I've got a few different things to talk about here. One of them is from Pixi, and it's the Correction Concentrate and Brightening Peach. I've been talking about this stuff for years. It's sort of the drugstore alternative to Benefit's Erase Paste, or what is now called Boing Brightening Concealer. That peachy tone concealer just works amazing on dark circles, discoloration. If you've got any melasma on your skin, it works so well with that. But if you're looking for something a little lower cost, granted this is still from one of Target's little bit higher priced lines, but it works very similarly to the Benefit product. It's a great pigment level, a really good tone, and if you're battling just a lot of darkness, any dark circles that are bordering on like a bluish tone, or like I said, any kind of dark spot, sunspot, melasma type thing, this type of a product will probably do more for it than just a standard concealer will, because it will actually help correct the color. Now, I thought I was coming on to something that would be comparable to this in a little concealer pot from Catrice. It's much less expensive, but a very similar tone, but I've noticed that dries out really quickly. I mean, I haven't had it that long, but it's nothing I would want to get up around the fine lines around my eyes. This has such a nice creamy consistency. I don't think you'd feel funny at all about getting it around the eye area. And for some people, this may be all you feel like you need concealer-wise. But if you want to take it a step further and overall like kind of brighten up an entire area, or maybe you've got other concerns on your face you just need a really good coverage concealer for, I've got a couple of other things to mention here. And one is a totally rediscovered thing. Like, I don't know how I let this go unused for so long in my collection, but it's the Maybelline Master Conceal. Have you guys been using this? Like, do you know about this? I have this in the shade Light. It's a squeezy tube concealer, but it has kind of a, I don't know, a surprisingly thin consistency, yet I feel really potent coverage. So what I did for my look today, after I put on the Pixie stuff, I used a little dab of this, kind of rubbed it between two fingers, dotted it kind of around the under eye area, and whatever else was left, you know, high points of the face, and then just blend that in. I used my Sephora Pro Mini Flawless Airbrush, but use whatever you want. This is not a hard concealer to work into the skin. I don't think it begs for a beauty blender at all. Like, it's just a very thin product, but the coverage is phenomenal, and this color Light on me, I feel like looks a little bit brightening, and I just really, really like that stuff. And I think it would be a very all-purpose, kind of well-rounded concealer for a variety of needs, whether you've got some redness or blemishes or under eye, just some general uneven skin tone. This stuff is very potent, but very thin and lightweight, so I love to see that. Now, another thing that I think is fantastic coverage and offers a little extra hydration, a little extra creaminess, is actually this Neutrogena Hydro Boost Hydrating Concealer with Hyaluronic Acid. This stick concealer, I have used a lot of mine, okay, and this is what it looks like. It's got a little core, if you can see that there, of hydrating stuff, and this is really nice around the under eye. I've used it all over the face. I've even practically worked this as a stick foundation at times if I just want to conceal and then pop a little powder on top. It's so good. Like, it is fantastically creamy. I'm not really sure why this doesn't get more buzz. The finish on the skin as well looks so beautiful, and I just think it's the added hydration that this product gives. It's not going to be sticky. It's not going to be annoying. It's not going to feel out of this world thick or anything on your skin, but it's a really great way to achieve that additional coverage if you still need it on top of your foundation. And like I said, the Pixie might not be what everybody needs. Not everybody might have a real dark circle, dark spot issue, but a general concealer, most people need something like that. And so I think these two are really awesome. I've also recently talked about the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind, which I think is a fantastic drugstore concealer. Every time I pull this out after not using it for a while, I'm always like, wow, that really does cover, you know? It always surprises me a little bit. I've got it in the brightener shade, which you can tell has kind of a pinky tone, and the neutralizer shade has a hint more yellow in it, but I like them both. I do think they're good coverage. They're very quick and easy to use. There's a thinness to them. I don't think they're quite as good a coverage as these two things that I just mentioned, but if we're talking good drugstore concealers, I think these definitely deserve to be in the conversation. Now, at first when I was thinking about doing this video, I thought we'll just stop at concealer. I don't think we really need to get into powder, but yes, I think ultimately we do need to get into powder because that's kind of the finishing, lock it up kind of step of the complexion, right? And sometimes powder can make a big difference. And if you're looking for just a good general drugstore loose powder, the Maybelline Fit Me is really, really good. I wear the shade Fair, but it does come in multiple shades, and I love this for a little light under eye setting powder. I have baked with this on numerous occasions. If you are looking for that brightening effect, maybe go up a shade from what you might think you want to use all over your face, because Fair is so perfect for me in that respect. I don't always love it all over the entire face, but if I'm looking for some setting powder on the under eye, this does work really well and has a very similar effect to the Laura Mercier. You know, I love that loose powder, and I would say this is in the ballpark. There are a lot of drugstore loose powders that I feel claim a mattifying effect or a perfecting effect, and then they just ultimately make me look so dry in this area. Here, I don't feel like I have to use too much product. I can set the under eye lightly and be satisfied with it. So I think if you haven't tried this, this is one worth looking into. Now, if you're into pressed powders or something that you could practically use as a powder foundation, talked about this one a lot before, but the LA Colors Mineral Pressed Powder, I think this runs around $5. Accessibility may be a little tough. I'm not sure how many places actually sell this, but I wear this in Fair. The whole line runs a little bit dark, but this is one of the smoothest powders out there, creamiest powders, you know? Actually does have a natural look on the skin. This I would call a full coverage powder foundation. Another one that I feel that way about that I can't find. I don't know where it is. I must have taken it in a purse somewhere just to have the compact mirror. But the Milani Conceal and Perfect Pressed Powder, that's really good stuff. If you liked Multitasker in the past, you don't really see Multitasker too much in stores anymore. I think they might still have it on their website. But I think the main like powder foundation Milani is putting out there these days is Conceal and Perfect. It's very smooth. It's a lot like this. You'll probably more easily run into that one in a store than this stuff, but very mattifying, very good coverage with that. Another option that I always talk about is the L'Oreal True Match Pressed Powder. It doesn't have quite the coverage of the LA Colors or the Milani that I mentioned, but it's close. And as far as general just drugstore pressed powders go, I think this is one of the best textures. I think in a pinch it can double as powder foundation. And a situation where I might use either of these is just kind of like all over the skin. So let's say I've set my under eye with my more brightening type powder, then I can just dab into, let's say, the LA Colors Mineral Powder, light dusting all over the skin. Certain foundations need that more than others, as we talked about. But after I've done it, I feel like, okay, there's my locked-in staying power. You don't have to be insanely high maintenance and be like, I need a separate powder for the under eye. But if you're really into brightening that area up and keeping it on another level as compared to the tone of the rest of your face, you might be into that. If you want to keep it simple, just get a good skin tone match in your pressed powder and zhunk, you know, set yourself all over once you're done. But guys, I hope this helped you out. I know how it feels to have something on your skin that you want to be able to cover up. You don't want to spend an arm and a leg to do it. Maybe you are legitimately needing the entire full face routine or just one missing piece of the puzzle, but I think these are some great products that are some kind of newer to me, and some it was kind of fun to reassess what I have and see like, oh yeah, that is amazing. Kind of bring it back to the discussion again, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about any of the things I've mentioned, or if there are other amazing coverage drugstore price range products that you think deserve some buzz. Let's hear about it in the comments section, and I will see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye!